Millionaire came home unannounced and froze when he saw the maid with his daughter. Desmond Carter wasn't supposed to be home that morning. The International Finance Summit in Dubai was expected to stretch through the evening. But when the final panel wrapped up earlier than expected, Desmond didn't wait. He booked himself on the earliest flight out. No entourage, no press release, no notice. He just wanted to surprise his little girl. By 9:47 a.m., he stepped quietly into the sun-drenched foyer of his Los Angeles mansion. The scent of polished wood and linen candles lingered in the air. Everything appeared as it always did, almost too perfect. The echo of his shoes on the marble floor was the only sound as he walked in. A white briefcase in one hand and a small pink teddy bear in the other, the one his daughter had left behind in his car weeks ago. He pictured it all. Walking in, seeing her on the floor with her dolls, crouching behind her and whispering, "Guess who's home?" But the moment he turned into the living room, the briefcase dropped with a loud thud. Standing beside the velvet couch was Mrs. Greta, the maid, a tall, stiff woman in her 50s, dressed in a classic black and white uniform, her expression severe. In her arms was Ava, Desmond's 5-year-old daughter. But Ava wasn't laughing or talking. She lay limp in Greta's grasp, her face hidden against the woman's shoulder. Desmond's eyes widened. Ava's face was bruised, her cheeks swollen, one eye nearly closed, her bottom lip bleeding. Her little hand hung unnaturally loose at her side. Her legs didn't move. She didn't move. Desmond stopped breathing, and Greta, cold and unmoved, didn't flinch. Her lips tightened into a disapproving line as she looked him dead in the eyes and said, without emotion, "She fell again." Desmond's chest burned. His pulse roared in his ears. He rushed forward, nearly knocking Greta out of the way, and scooped Ava into his arms. She whimpered at his touch, her body tensed in pain. He felt her ribs tremble beneath her skin. "Baby girl," Desmond whispered, his voice cracking as tears welled in his eyes. "What happened to you?" Ava didn't answer. She just buried her face deeper into his chest and let out another soft, broken whimper. Desmond looked up sharply, fury rising in his throat. "What did you do to her?" Greta folded her arms without flinching. "Like I said, she fell. She's clumsy. Always has been." His hands trembled as he pulled out his phone. One hand held Ava close while the other jabbed at the screen. "Yes, emergency," he said, voice tight with rage. "My daughter's 5. She's bruised, possibly has broken ribs. I need an ambulance. Now." Minutes later, the quiet mansion swarmed with urgency as paramedics entered the room. Desmond reluctantly let them take Ava from his arms. Her soft crying faded to low moans as they laid her on a stretcher and examined her. One medic looked up, concern etched deep into his face. "Sir, these injuries, they don't appear accidental." Desmond turned slowly toward Greta, his jaw clenched. "You were supposed to protect her." Greta didn't blink. "She screams when she doesn't get what she wants. I disciplined her." "You what?" Desmond's voice was a growl. "She needed structure," Greta continued coldly. "You left her with no rules, just toys and sympathy. I gave her what you wouldn't." Desmond stepped forward, fists curling at his sides, but a nearby officer raised a calm but firm hand. "Let us handle this, sir." As Greta was escorted out, Desmond collapsed onto the edge of the velvet couch, his head in his hands. His crisp white suit was now marked with small, dark stains, his daughter's blood. His thoughts spiraled. How long had this been going on? Lately, Ava had been quieter. Less energy, less laughter during their calls, but every time he'd blamed it on the grief of losing her mother. Tantrums, nightmares, silence. It had all seemed understandable, manageable. Then he remembered. Weeks ago, Ava had pointed to a bruise on her leg and said quietly, "Greta said I'm not fast enough." He had brushed it off as a strange comment from a child mid-play. He hadn't asked more questions. Now she was covered in bruises. He had trusted a professional smile and a polished resume over the tiny, subtle cries of his own child, and the guilt gutted him like a blade. Outside, red and blue lights flashed as the ambulance waited. The paramedics lifted Ava onto the stretcher gently. Her tiny hand reached out for him, trembling. Desmond rushed forward and grasped it tightly, tears streaming down his face. "I'm here now," he whispered. "Daddy's not going anywhere." She squeezed his hand weakly and finally spoke a single word. "Hurts." Desmond closed his eyes, pressing his forehead to hers. "Never again, baby. I promise you. It'll never hurt again." The hospital smelled of antiseptic and heartbreak. Desmond Carter sat quietly beside his daughter's hospital bed, now dressed in simple, understated clothes. The pristine white suit he'd worn that morning had been discarded, stained with blood, guilt, and the weight of failure. He hadn't slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Ava in Greta's arms, limp, bruised, whispering, "Hurts." Ava, just 5 years old, lay hooked up to an IV, cocooned in a soft blanket decorated with tiny animals. Her face was swollen, her lips stitched, one eye purple and shut. The doctors had confirmed what Desmond feared most: 2 fractured ribs, a dislocated shoulder, and bruises in various stages of healing. Evidence of repeated trauma, not a fall, not clumsiness, a pattern. Greta Langford had been arrested the moment the paramedics left the mansion. But for Desmond, that wasn't enough. He didn't just want charges. He wanted the truth. He called his legal team, brought in a private investigator, and gave a single, unwavering order: "Find me everything about her." What they uncovered chilled him. Greta Langford, age 52, no formal criminal record, but a disturbing trail. Families who had employed her over the years recalled troubling behavior: harsh discipline, disturbing punishments, unexplained injuries, but none had pursued legal action. Most were too embarrassed. Others feared backlash. Some just wanted to move on. "She was always strict," one mother admitted over the phone. "But I never imagined she'd lock our son in a pantry because he didn't eat his peas." "We fired her the next day," another confessed. "But we didn't report it. We just wanted it behind us." 7 families, 7 stories. And Desmond realized with a sickening jolt, Ava had nearly become another forgotten name on a long, silent list. 2 days later, Desmond stood in a packed courtroom. Greta sat in handcuffs, her hair messy, face unchanged. No emotion, no remorse, just that same cold, unreadable expression. When the judge asked if anyone wished to speak, Desmond rose. He walked forward, steady, composed. But every word he spoke cut deep. "She wasn't just my employee," he said, voice low but resolute. "I trusted her with my daughter's life. I gave her keys to my home, access to my schedule, and believed Ava was safe." He paused, jaw clenched. "But I missed the signs. And that failure is mine. It's something I'll carry for the rest of my life." He looked toward Ava, resting in a wheelchair beside a nurse. "But my daughter, she's healing, because she's stronger than the woman who tried to break her." Then Desmond turned to Greta, eyes hardening. "You used silence as a weapon. You preyed on a grieving child, thinking no one would listen, that no one would believe her. But you didn't expect me to come home early. You didn't expect karma. And now you'll face both." The court sentenced Greta to 12 years without the possibility of parole for felony child abuse, with additional charges pending from the now reopened past cases. But Desmond didn't celebrate. He simply exhaled, For the first time in days, back at the mansion, everything felt colder, bigger, emptier. Ava's toys remained untouched in the playroom. Her drawings, stick figures of Daddy and me, were still taped to the fridge, right next to a sticker chart Greta had once twisted into a tool of shame. But Desmond wasn't the same man anymore. Yes, he still had money, influence, power. But none of that had protected Ava. A whisper from a bruised 5-year-old had. So he decided to use his wealth differently. He launched the Ava Carter Trust, a foundation designed to protect children in private homes. It offered vetted background checks, surprise evaluations, and anonymous reporting systems for families employing domestic workers. Desmond partnered with lawmakers to push for mandatory oversight for in-home caregivers across the state. But more importantly, he listened. He listened to Ava, to her small, uncertain voice that slowly began to grow stronger. They started reading bedtime stories together again. They had breakfast side by side. They solved puzzles on the living room floor. She clung to him like the world could disappear at any moment. And he never let her go. Not again. Weeks passed. One quiet afternoon, Ava picked up a crayon and walked over to him. She placed it in his hand. "Draw with me, Daddy." He smiled and took the purple crayon. "What should I draw?" She paused, thoughtful, then said softly, "Draw me, but happy this time." Desmond's heart cracked, not from pain, but from something far more powerful. Healing. Greta had tried to steal Ava's voice, but she hadn't silenced her spirit. And Desmond made a vow that day. No one would ever hurt his daughter again. And if they tried, the world would hear about it. If you felt moved by this story, give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more emotional, dramatic, and unexpected tales. And let us know in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? We love hearing your stories too. Until next time, stay kind, stay curious, and keep watching.